Good evening, Bulls fans. I'm Matt Gritzmacher, as always, joined by John McWhinney for the UB. Anyway, but if you are watching us live, we apologize for the 18-minute delay. We were troubleshooting audio issues, which boiled down to Matt, the humanities major, didn't unmute his computer, so I'll take the blame for that one. And John's an engineer. He's all set. He's got his life together. Matt doesn't so much. But we're operating now, which is great. I suppose this is as good a time as any to publish the actual post. We can do that.
Yeah, so while
last weekend, definitely more.
Oh?
What's that? Well,
I was going to say,
I
was going to start talking.
Start talking. That sounds good.
So while Matt's doing that, had a pretty busy week, pretty good week in terms of most teams. As per usual, when a new team starts playing, we usually talk about them first, and softball finally got their season off
Finally
and
got
running.
their season running. Yeah.
Yeah. Not the greatest start. Started 1-4. Could have been better. I guess it could have been worse, but
yeah.
Mostly underclassmen were in the lineup. Guess a few bright spots were some of the freshmen, including our not really self-proclaimed, but our international sensation.
Coach proclaimed.
Yes, our coach proclaimed international sensation. And a couple of freshman pitchers looked pretty well this weekend. Another bright spot was up until today's Southern Illinois game, UB did not commit an error. But then today happened and they committed 5.
Yeah.
But those things happen.
Yeah. On pitching, Lace Smith is one of the new freshman pitchers. That's about what we expected to get from her. She was like state player of the year as a junior in like Florida's largest classification. And she was first team All-State again in Florida's largest classification as a senior. I think she's going to be our regular pitcher going forward. She, I wouldn't even say struggled in her. She pitched 3 games, and I think she took 2 losses. But the first one was the first game against Tennessee Martin. She was over Tennessee State. She had like 7 strikeouts and 6 innings in that one. Only gave up a handful of hits, 3 hits. And then she also pitched yesterday against Nicholls State. I think she got the start. Oh, no, that was Allie Power. Okay, so she had 2, and then she came in relief today after the floodgates had opened against Southern Illinois. But she's someone who we expected definitely to be an instant contributor at pitcher. I'm a little bit surprised to see her in as the opening day. Bobby Langlois and Charlotte Miller last year were serviceable. We're a step down from Tori Speckman the year before. Everybody's going to be a step down from Tori Speckman. But they did not consistently put forward the performances even that Lace Smith did today. So if that's the norm, then she is, to my eyes right now, the best pitcher on the team. The other freshman pitcher we got time is Allie Power, who I think is going to be a day in and day out contributor for this team. She was the Colorado Gatorade Player of the Year last year. She's good. She's good at softball. I really think, John, the most exciting thing is the errors. They did have 1 error on Saturday in the second game, but even so, I don't think they had a stretch all year last year of 1 error over 4 games. they definitely didn't have a stretch of 0 errors over their first 3. And last year, I was willing to point a lot of blame of that to a young freshman team, which they still are this year, and a team that, because of the weather in Buffalo, wasn't able to practice outside until like the end of March, early April. And not necessarily that they've had a ton more chance to practice outside, but they've gotten better and older, and we're seeing that they're a little more they take care of things a little better. In today's game, the 8-0 loss to Southern Illinois, I think at least 3 of the errors were throwing errors. 2 from Lauren Gambone, a catcher, and one throwing error from the pitcher, who would have been Power, over to first base. And then Kelsey Edwards made 1 fielding error, and that only gets us to 4. I don't actually know where the 5th was. But even so, that I'll take throwing errors over people dropping things in the outfield and letting ground balls get through. The other thing that I thought really last year for softball was noticeable, and we saw this today, was once things started to go wrong, they really just kept going wrong, and this team last year couldn't really stand bleeding at all. Obviously, we see that they gave up a 7-run inning against Southern Illinois today. That's going to happen with young teams. But I think it was good to see that even though they lost 3 of their other 4 games, they lost 3-1 in Nicholas State, they were down 1-0 for much of the game, gave up 2 in the 7th, but held it to 2, were able to get a run back, and I should actually check and see who was on base at the end of the 7th there. Yeah, so they had someone on first with 2 outs at the end of the 7th, so not necessarily a rally there. Against Tennessee Martin to open it was 4-3. And that was a 2-2 game going into the 7th, and they again gave up 2 runs in the top of the 7th. But I believe they got out of a bit of a jam to hold it to 2. Yeah. Oh, no, excuse me. They scored 2 and then lost on a walk-off. Even so. Definitely kind of a different vibe, I think, just in terms of when teams scored runs. It was only 1 or 2 at a time against them, except for this 1 inning today. The pitching, I think, like I said, I think that what we got from Smith and Power this weekend, even today before the meltdown, Power had given up only 2 or 3 hits over the first 4 innings. I think if we got that consistently, it would be a big step up from last year. Offensively, we know this is going to be an interesting year. Last year was a tough year offensively at times, but there was still Alexis Curtis. There was still Haley Barrow. The 2 of them could still really pop the ball. And this year, those power hitters aren't there other than Lauren Gambone. And so it'll be really interesting to see what comes of it. You mentioned Courtney Gilbert, who spent some time on the Canadian national junior team this summer. She had a couple multi-hit games. Kenzie Cook and Danielle Lalos each had a couple of hits, and one other person who had a couple strong games, and I've forgotten which one it was.
Who did you say? I have the stats right up in front of me.
I mentioned Cook and Lalos. I know why.
Gilbert had 5 hits.
Yeah, Gilbert had a couple multi.
And Savannah
Norcio
had 8.
Yeah, Norcio is at the leadoff position. She looks like she deserves to be there, which is good. I think that what we saw from Coach Peel in her first season was definitely a power hitting team. There was Holly Luciano and, oh my goodness, I'm getting Luciano, and then Curtis and Barrow, and then Tori Speckman pitching. And it was a team that really set a lot of offensive records with some real big slugging percentages. I don't think this year's team has that at all. It's going to be more of a piece and things together. And we'll see how well the offense comes along. It's still a 1-4 weekend, John, but I'm pretty happy with what I see given, identifying the weak spots of last year's team. I think that those spots look decidedly less weak than last year, other than perhaps the offense. We'll see where that goes.
Mm-hmm. Even then, at the offense, I mean, just looking at the stats themselves at the top half of the lineup, as you said, Norcio's the leadoff hitter, and in 17 at bats, she had 8 hits and 4 walks. getting on base 12 out of the 17 times is great for your especially for your leadoff hitter. Having that one person on base nearly all the time that you can rely on is always helpful.
Yeah.
Courtney Gilbert's another one, our international sensation that I think, 5 hits in 5 games.
We'll take that.
I mean, I'll take it. I mean, I'm absolutely not going to complain about that. I mean, if you average a hit a game, that's pretty good.
That's good. Yeah. We should be clear. International sensation comes from Coach Peel. It was just one of those coach talk blurbs that we get every signing class. But the Bull Run community has really latched on to it as a thing. So hopefully Gilbert lives up to the hype, because we're never going to forget that. Sorry.
I think it's already made its way into the Bull Run lexicon, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm pretty sure it has. Yeah.
So yeah, if you say something as a coach, it'll be immortalized in our glossary posts.
We do not forget.
This is the internet. The internet doesn't forget anything.
That's true. Nice thing about Norcio too, and obviously this is very, very early, but she does lead the team in extra base hits. Which, if on top of getting on base, you're already moving over second without having to advance on the bunt or try and steal a base, that helps a lot. Leadoff doubles are runs in college softball. They just are. Because you bunt them over to third, then all you need is a ground out or just getting anything into the outfield. It's very nice to see some pretty high strikeout rates. Let me double check this. That's strikeouts per game. That doesn't do what I wanted to do. Lace Smith is just below a strikeout per inning, and Allie Power is a little bit below it. But if we can get – that was another issue, obviously, last year. If the defense is struggling, strikeouts help with that. Strikeouts take away opportunities for the defense to make an error. And so I don't actually remember like last year. But to see both Power and Smith close to a strikeout inning, that's pretty solid and exciting as they keep going here. And of course, the errors today, they're going to happen. Errors will come, but one error over the first 2 full days is very, very encouraging.
And I think that's kind of going to be the theme of this season. If based on our chat last week, it's going to be looking for improvement, because the majority of, or a lot of the roster is freshmen and sophomores, and it's still a fairly young team. So I guess that'll just be something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see what happens. It's softball and baseball are that kind of situation where how much stock that's flying 3-4 hour flights every weekend just to get competition. And then once MAC play comes, we'll be able to see a little bit more of what comes of it. But it's really hard to, at least right now, to have expectations, really reasonable expectations, really know what they are, because we really don't know anything. It's a 50-game season, so we can get a good chunk in and then be ready to still have a good chunk left to talk about and have expectations for. Speaking of expectations, for a year and a half now, not really a year and a half, in track and field years, a year and a half, basically since January 16th, 2015, every weekend track and field has set a new school record from someone. For a lot of last year, it was Mike Morgan and John Jones kind of pulling the weight and setting new records. For a stretch this year, it's been the sprinters. We've talked a lot, John, about the sprinting depth on the men's side. Darian Johnson, of course, in the short sprints. Josh, Brian Comiskey has been very fast. UB continues to have good hurdles depth, which are Michael Bunch. We talked about the spring depth on the women's side. It's the same thing. There's There's Tyra Forbes. There's Malaya White. Kamaria Long has experimented with the 400 instead of the 200. There's a lot going on there. For a couple of weeks now, I've kind of been grumpy about how there have been fewer bowls placed and even entered into the longer events. We've got 2 full cross-country teams full of, folks, and we've really at most seen 1 or 2 in any of the longer events. This weekend, that really changed. Two of these school records weren't necessarily unexpected just because they were guys breaking their own school records. Brian Crimmins lowered his own school record in the mile for the second weekend in a row, and Tyler Sheving lowered his own school record in the 800. And those 2 have traded off, I think, both of those records and the 1,000, maybe not the mile. They've traded off the 1,000 and the 800 at least once each. And so there's kind of the cross-country depth, the mid-distance depth coming through that I've asked for at times this year. And the other big one, the third one, is really the big one, is on the women's side, Amy Shaw, who last year Amy Shaw had a very strong track season, and I said she's going to be good for cross-country, and she really backed it up and had a very good cross-country season this year, and now she's continuing to go forward. She broke the school record in the 5,000 by 5 seconds. And this was one on the women's side, one on the books. It had been set in 2005. Among events that are still contested, things like the 55-meter dash is no longer a thing. Things like the 1,500 instead of the mile is no longer a thing. Among the school records, events that are actually contested, this was the second oldest record on the books. Only the triple jump indoors has stayed longer for UB, and Shaw broke it by 4 full seconds. And so that's a really big mark, and she is continuing, to look very, very solid for the bowls. We'll see how quickly I can pull the roster up. She's a junior, but that's okay. That's very exciting. I haven't actually done any look yet into how UB stacks up around the MAC, John, but keep setting school records, which has to be good for something. At a minimum, it means that even if they go poorly against the MAC, that we know we're better positioned than we have been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Not a school record, but take it away.
Not a school record, but pretty damn impressive nonetheless, was Devin Patterson shattered his personal best, which I believe it would have been good for 8th at last year's national championships.
Yep. At last year's indoor nationals, this would have been good for 8th. Right now, it sits 15th in the country. Yeah. We should give a number: 19 meters. 19.
And
That's very far.
And for those of you that don't like the metric system, 19 meters is approximately 62 feet.
Yes, it's a little bit beyond it. And I think this is actually today, I think it's his personal best in either direction. But last week he set a personal best, and it was only 10 centimeters off of his outdoor personal best, which for whatever reason guys seem to throw further indoors than outdoors. I haven't yet figured out why, because it doesn't feel like there should be a difference. It's a bowling ball. Like wind doesn't help. Bowling balls, like humidity shouldn't help like it might with a baseball. I don't know. Anyway, Devin Patterson, worth noting that when we say 8th at nationals last year, there was only 1 freshman qualified for nationals last year in Patterson's age, and that was the Serbian name from Virginia. Virginia shot putter. Let's see if I find it quickly enough. I'm not going to find it quickly enough. That's okay. There was only 1 freshman qualified for nationals last year, and obviously Patterson's a sophomore this year. And, we just mentioned it, he's sitting 15th in the country right now. There's room there, It looks like Patterson's going to qualify for nationals, and honestly, looking at least at the nationals distances last year, Ryan Cribben could be there too. I don't know what the qualifying is like, or if those distances were dropped down from what those guys had thrown in the regular season. But
it's good to see.
Yeah.
To say the least. Especially because at the start of the season, it seemed like Cribben was clearly a step ahead of Patterson. I think at most events it was Cribben and then Patterson 1-2. And it's not a knock against Ryan Cribben, but it's we had sort of that expectation that Patterson, given Patterson's high school background and his prep career, that he was going to be that guy to step forward and was going to be the number one guy.
Yeah.
Cribben has been somewhat of a pleasant surprise for me. I didn't, I knew he was good. I didn't think he would have stepped up as big as he did this season. So both, both very good. I mean, that's kind of an understatement saying that.
Yeah, it's worth noting that Cribben was sitting second in the MAC championships last year, and Patterson only passed him on his last throw, which at the time was a PR by like 65 centimeters. Worth noting. And to be honest, I think they went 1-3-5 at the indoor championships last year. I'll check it right now. Stats. Field events. Where are you? Oh, they're mixed in. What is this? How did I stand this last year? Oh, excuse me. They went Cribben didn't place at the indoor MAC championships last year. That's kind of a surprise to me. Well, never mind then. Anyway, let's track.
Maybe you're thinking of outdoor?
Well, no, because I know that in the outdoor, Cribben was sitting second, and Patterson passed him on his last throw. And I was just trying to remember indoor, and it was Jones first, Patterson fifth. And for some reason, I thought they went 1-2-5 or 1-3-5, but not the case. That's track and field. They're awesome.
Yeah. Another team that's awesome.
Yeah, to say the least.
To say the least. And people hear me say that, and they're thinking one team, but I'm surprised it's not the team you're thinking of, but it's women's tennis.
It's women's tennis. Still undefeated.
Yeah. 6, I can't count. 7-0. There we go.
Well, technically not so. Because those things at UConn don't count.
Well, I count them, so they're 7-0.
Sounds good. I won't quibble that. I mean, we won pretty decisively in those as well. I'm really, the newsflash. Not only is women's tennis like beating everyone, but short of Duquesne, who looks very strong, they're beating the crap out of everyone. They've only outside of Duquesne, they've only dropped 1 team point all year so far, and that was against UConn. This weekend it was against ASA College, a JUCO team, and Niagara, and they won 7-0 against both of them. Not a terribly surprising result against Niagara because we don't like them, so we assume that they're bad at everything. ASA College last year beat UB 4-3. Last year they wrapped up their second straight JUCO national title, and they did so. They only dropped 1 set in the entire JUCO national tournament, which is formatted a little bit differently than like UB's tournaments are, where you have you basically have cascading dual matches. The way that the JUCO tournament is there's a first singles flight and a second singles flight and a third singles flight, and ASA College last year won all of those and only dropped 1 set in doing so. They were very, very dominant. They played a number of Division I programs last year and beat a handful of them, beat UB 4-3. This year, their lineup is entirely new. I don't know if that happens every year with them or every 2 years. Obviously, JUCOs are usually a 2-year setup. Not good anymore, but UB still beat them 7-0, which was really encouraging to see. And then they beat Niagara 7-0, and really, it was as lopsided a tennis match. Mathematically, John, we could have been more lopsided against Niagara, but practically you can't. We won the 3 doubles sets. 6-3, 6-2, and 6-1. And then all 6 singles matches only were won in straight sets, and Niagara had no set better than 6-2. That's the closest they got. And I feel like there's not much more to say than that when that's the case. Worth noting that there was a slight shift in the lineup for Niagara, and actually while I'm doing it, let me check it for ASA, but I don't think so. So Laura Holterbosch moved up to 3 singles, and Margarita Kotak moved down to 4 for Niagara. Obviously, we're beating everyone. Kotak did lose against Duquesne. Holterbosch did lose once in the Yukon Invitational. That's really it in terms of, why would that decision be made. So it might be in practice. It might have been for matchup reasons. Certainly against Niagara, who you had to know that UB was going to win. Maybe give a chance to see what Holterbosch can do a little higher up the lineup. I feel like that might just be a manufacturer talking point because I don't have anything else to say. But
women's tennis is awesome. So
women's tennis rocks. And next weekend they're at West Virginia and at Pitt. They've competed at West Virginia each of the last 2 falls. And 2 falls ago, it was kind of a team-by-team format, and West Virginia 5-2 in kind of the heads-up matches. This year it was a flight format, and UB and West Virginia were definitely the best 2 teams at their in the tournament. And UB had both winners, both finalists, I should say, in the top singles flight. They took second in the second singles flight and third in another. They had someone in the finals of each of the top 3 or 4 flights. I didn't actually take the time to count it out and see which of UB or West Virginia actually did better that day, but that weekend, I should say. But that they took agree from us. That's very disappointing. We'll talk about that when soccer season comes back around. But a coming weekend for women's tennis. Don't really know quite what we've got yet, to be honest, John. I'm excited because of the teams they've played. St. Francis, Quinnipiac, and Bryant were all NCAA teams last year. Mm-hmm. And they swept them a cumulative 17-0. ASA College turned over their entire lineup, so maybe they're not good anymore. And Niagara's Niagara. The win against Duquesne is very good looking, especially given that UB took the doubles point, and it came down to that one came down to Chantal Martinez-Blanco dueling it out with a fellow all-conference caliber freshman at number 2 singles. We talked about it last week. Mm-hmm. We'll see what comes next. They've got this weekend West Virginia Pitt. They've got a weekend at home, and then they'll spend a weekend at Minnesota and Iowa State. That'll be pretty tough. They do a lot of traveling this year. They'll go to Minnesota and Iowa State, and then in the middle of March they're going to Puerto Rico. Chantal Martinez-Blanco's home territory, I guess we have to say. That's getting far ahead of ourselves. They're undefeated. All I'm doing right now is holding off John's favorite part of every week, wrestling.
Yes, you say that like it's a bad thing. Come on now.
Well, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I had a little bit of delay and catchiness as you responded to that, so we might have to hype this up again. Wrestling. I feel like we should just play John Stutzman's voiceless post-match interview with Howard and Bob, but I don't have the screen up quickly enough, and so I'm not going to do it.
To describe it, it sounds as if he gargled with sandpaper.
Yeah.
If I were to describe the way he sounds,
I want to get an oxygen tank for his emphysema. That's and this is good. Hooray for John Stutzman, we love you. But please take care of your voice. Wrestling won twice this weekend, which is great.
They did. In a season of firsts, beat Binghamton for the first time in the Stutzman era. First time we've beaten Bingo in quite a few years, actually. I don't remember the last time we actually beat them. It was before I came to UB, so it was prior to the 2012 season. Hit 10 wins for the first time since the 03-04 season, and had the first winning season since the 2010 season. So,
Wait,
really?
say that sentence again? That sounds wrong.
Okay. My English isn't.
Why is 2010 relevant? Why did you just bring them up?
First winning season since
I
think
said first winning season since like 2004.
No, first 10 win season since 03-04. First winning season since I think it was 2010-2011.
Okay, well
or
that's what I'm at now.
2010, one of those 2 years.
Okay, see that sounds weird to me, but it looks like 2010-11 has a lot of W's.
I think they were like 9-8 that season.
Yeah, 3-2, 6-3, 7-6. Yeah, they were 9-8.
9-8. Okay.
That is what they were. That just sounds strange to me. Because we've just been looking back and further back for these 10 and 11 win seasons, and I didn't realize we had a winning season that recently.
Yeah, it was before, as Stutzman, so bluntly put it, that the program was kind of left for dead. But it's really risen from the. You've really seen this team rise, and it's the youngest team in Division One. They managed to hit 10 wins with damn near an entire roster full of redshirt freshmen and sophomores. To put that into perspective, UB couldn't hit that with their only All-American on the roster. They couldn't hit that with, I think one year they had 3 or 4 individual MAC champions. They couldn't hit 10 dual meet wins. To me, that's the most impressive thing, that this team is so young, yet they're still able to overcome, and they're winning. You're starting to see glimpses of what Stutzman had built at Bloomsburg, when Bloomsburg was a perennial top 20, top 25 team. You're starting to see that here.
Yeah, and keep going. Sorry.
Oh no, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, what I want to point out is not only really when we look at duels that came down to a single match, win over Maryland. Technically, it didn't come down to a single match. They had it locked up before Gunning's match, but then Gunning lost. And it really came down to that stretch where Rill, McBride, Areola, and Benjamin all won in a row. 13. One match swings that. That's not what I wanted to click on. The loss to West Virginia came down to a single match, but the win over Lock Haven was won at the very end. And then quite a single match, but a very narrow score. Columbia was a very narrow score. Old Dominion was by only 4 points. Now Northern Illinois by 4 points. Not quite the best resume you could ask for there, but that's a sign. If a young team is already finding a way to gut out close matches, that's very encouraging for me, and it definitely fits into the vibe that you've put forward. In the past, trying to explain Stutzman's goals is just keep wrestling and have the right attitude. And so that's very encouraging to see, is that they are a young team, and not only are they winning, they're not winning purely on talent. They got a forfeit today. They got a forfeit from Old Dominion in that win. That helps. I think that you'll tell me a win is a win, and I'm all right. I'm ready to accept that. But it's particularly good to see, especially because right now, or at least coming into this weekend, who did we wrestle last? Central Michigan?
Yeah,
that loss to Central Michigan was so frustrating, and Stutzman was And to have this reminder that like this young team is gutting out things is a good reminder.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, really, if you look back at their last few losses, Central Michigan, top 25 team, Ohio, top 25 team, Missouri, top 25 or top 5 team, and Columbia. Columbia, they should have had Columbia beat. So really, since the new year, the only teams that UB has lost to are nationally ranked teams. And they even beat one in Old Dominion last month. I really can't to put this into perspective. Really, this team is going to return basically everyone next year.
Yeah.
And this team had 10 wins with a bunch of freshmen. And to kind of make an analogy to football, the MAC is, for those who don't know, the MAC, I would argue, is the second best wrestling conference. Video froze there for a second.
You were good on my end.
Okay, it was just frozen on my end. The MAC is the second best wrestling conference in the nation, just behind the Big Ten. So if you want to make an analogy to football, that's like playing in the Big Ten in football or the Pac-12 or whichever conference, Power 5 conference you want to talk about. That's like playing in one of those conferences, having a winning record with a team full of freshmen and sophomores. That's basically what this team has done. They've played against they wrestle against the highest level of competition you can. There were no real cupcakes on their schedule outside of I think one non-Division I school. I think that was Springfield College.
Yeah, 51-0.
51-0.
Business.
And I mean, they beat a Big Ten team. They beat Maryland. They had West Virginia on the ropes. They were a top 25 team. They should have beaten Columbia.
Realistically, they should have beaten Columbia. They did beat Binghamton. Like you can build a pretty solid Division I program just on New York State.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're proving that they're proving that they're just a hair's breadth away from being the second best program in New York State. Well, Army. I don't know how good Army
Cornell.
Is.
Cornell.
No. I know. Cornell goes unsaid. I don't know how good Army is for me to say, are we better than Army? But Army's just such a different animal.
Army.
And recruiting-wise, it's so different.
Yeah, recruiting-wise, it's a little different for wrestling because wrestling, all body types can go wrestle. It's not like football where if like you're a lineman, and you're like 6'6", 300 pounds, you're not going to go to a service academy because, there are weight standards and you have to do certain things. For wrestling, that doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And they have hand-to-hand combat and stuff they have to train for in the Army, and that helps and whatnot. But I would say Cornell is definitely 1. Army's probably 2, and we're a very close 3 right behind Army. I think we've leapfrogged Binghamton just on this season alone.
Yeah.
Our Army still they have a lot of good guys in the pipeline and a lot of good guys that I know of that are going to be incoming recruits. I think in the next year or two, I'm reasonably confident that I will be able to say that UB has jumped Army and is now just gunning for Cornell. That's what the ultimate goal is to be up there with Cornell, because Cornell is a perennial top 10, top 15 team. They produce national champions. They produce All-Americans on a regular basis, and that's what Stutzman wants here. And really, the season is laying that groundwork, because now what he can do is he can say, they actually mentioned this on.
There's a big difference between doubling your wins from 1 to 3 to 5 and doubling your wins from 5 to 10.
Exactly.
It's
And
definitely
it helps with recruiting too. I mean, he can go to people, and he can go to recruit instead of like selling him on the potential that UB has and where this program is going. Now we can say, this is where we are. We're a double-digit win team. We're ready to win now. And these guys came in as freshmen and they contributed immediately, and that's something that he can sell to recruits. And
absolutely,
this stuff has just done wonders.
He can sell to recruits so quickly. All these very narrow losses. These three: App State, West Virginia, and Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
Like alone, like Tommy Forte, redshirting freshman right now. He'll come in next year. He's kind of, for my money, the starter 157 next year. 157 against West Virginia. Against App State, we lost just a regular decision. And we don't actually have results on the UB page for Columbia. It must be
for
here.
Columbia, I believe it was we
got a regular decision there too against us. So, point being, like, that alone, like, our three closest matches of the season, you haven't worry of wins, and we win those three matches. That's how close UB is to not just a two-digit win season that John's talking about, but, like, really a ranked, I guess, and none of those are against MAC teams, and we got to win in the MAC too.
2 wins in the MAC. Actually,
but there are 2, but none of our close losses. Ohio, Central Michigan, and Kent were all bloodbaths. Kent, not really, but if you don't know what happened, you think that's the case.
Yeah, I mean those 3 teams that you mentioned, they're top 25 teams right now, and if you look at the profile of their starting lineups, all senior laden, tons of seniors in their lineups. So really what they have now, they just have an experience advantage, and that's it. And that's what they were able to use to parlay that into wins. But now, Sutsman has the talent. It's just developing that talent. It's starting to be developed already, and you're seeing that. And a couple years down the line, we'll be sitting here talking about, UB being a top 25 team. I legitimately think that UB will be a top 25 team. They will be a ranked team within the next couple of years, no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
But moving on to the actual results instead of just talking big picture.
Yeah, I was thinking about segueing to next weekend and talking about the MAC championships, but we should definitely talk about the actual wins.
So I'll start with Binghamton. That was Friday. Because of the basketball game being moved to ESPNU, the start time was pushed back, and it wasn't on ESPN3. It was just through the Ustream on the UB website. So there's no commentary or anything. It was just quiet video, and I just sat watching the video, and it was an interesting experience. But anywho, Kyle Aikens got things started off really quickly. He pinned his guy Steve Bolzomi really, really quick. He got the first takedown, and he mentioned the post-match press conference that he felt him kind of break. And it's great. You need, like Max Soria last year, just being able to get that guy at 125 to go out there and win. That's a huge momentum boost. Then Brian Lantry actually avenged a loss at the New York State Collegiate Wrestling Championships against Jake Nicholson. He lost 14-1 back in November. The other day, he eventually lost and won 9-3. He was in complete control the entire time. Then Brandon Lappy really gutted out a great win, 2-0 over Dylan Carana. And Colt Cotton does what Colt Cotton does and pinned Jesse Della Vecchia. Then things kind of got a little hairy. Alex Smythe, who made his return to dual meet action, had to burn his red shirt because apparently Tim Schafer got hurt in practice. He lost at 157. Rock Nadoke lost at 165. Tyler Rill bumped up to 174 because Muhammad McBride was also hurt. He lost there, and Joe Ariola lost a narrow one at 184 to a top 20 guy. Then James Benjamin and Jake Gunning both came out and won, only needing really one win out of the two to seal the match for UB. Just great wrestling all around. I mean, none of the matches were really too out of hand. I mean, none of UB's losses were by, only one of UB's losses was by more than 2 points, which is always good to see. And moving on to today against Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois, if you watch any of the Bulls update videos where Paul Peck sits down with one of the coaches, Stutzman said that outside of Missouri, Northern Illinois had the most talented roster from top to bottom of any team in the MAC. Excuse me. Which you can see it. They have a lot of talented wrestlers. Started off in a big way. Started off at 197 pounds, and James Benjamin pinned the number 16 ranked wrestler in the nation. And
boy, was it pretty!
It was pretty. I was jumping up and down. I was yelling. I was screaming. It was awesome to watch. It really was. I would highly suggest watching the recap video or going back and watching the replay on ESPN3 if you have the service available. Just the way he countered that move. They were in a double underhook and overhook situation, and he was just able to leverage him just right. And he spun him from his knees right down to his back. He was able to pounce on top and hold him down for the fall. And then just watching the bench erupt, Coach Stutzman, actually Coach Grant too, were both doing their, the alligator clap, jumping up and down. It was a sight to see. I think that match for me really showed that Benjamin's really starting to turn a corner.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
We've talked about him before, where his freshman year he was wrestling up at 285, where he was just outsized. Now he's back at 197 as his natural weight, and he's doing much better. And I think now that's really starting to come into play, and he's developed to the point where he can do this type of stuff now, and he can beat anyone at any given time, which is great to see. Jake Gunning probably should have had a pin too. I watched the replay. I think if the ref had gotten around a little bit quicker, I think he had a cradle. Probably should have been a pin, but he got 4 back points. It was an easy 8-1 decision, which, me still being so excitable from the first match and then Gunning nearly getting a pin, my brain forgot how to do math, and 8 minus 1 is still 7 and not 8.
To be fair, the paid commentators also said he was getting a major. I didn't catch it until after the commercial break. So it happens.
It happens.
I think Gunning had the pin there, and that would have been great. But will take the 3.
Mm-hmm. And then Kyle Akins at 125, he was down.
He went down 4-0 fast. Like in the first 20 seconds, he got taken down and gave up back points.
Mm-hmm.
And
he fought it. He clawed his way back.
Yeah.
He was down, 6-4. Heading into the final seconds, he got what looked like a takedown right at the buzzer. The ref didn't call it. Stutzman challenged. It was overturned. He was awarded the takedown. They went to overtime. Now, thanks to ESPN and needing all that ad revenue, overtime had started and was done before the commercials had stopped.
Yeah.
So they awarded Akins the takedown at the end of regulation, and then within like the first 10 seconds of overtime, he basically bowled this guy over right to the ground and got the takedown.
It looks like the bull rush from a defensive lineman. Like, that's what it looked like in the highlight. It looks like when Khalil Mack just pushes a dude over, and that was great.
And then,
but you'd be up 12-0.
And then Brian Lantry got.
I thought he had lost because when I got back to the computer screen, I just saw Lantry and I was like, oh, like he just lost.
And then you looked at me live tweeting on Twitter like, hey, he won.
Yeah, it was a pleasant surprise for sure.
Then Lantry got a forfeit at 133. The guy actually failed to make weight.
Is that what the reason was?
That's what the UB release said. I don't think they said it in on the telecast. I might be wrong.
They guessed in the telecast, and that was one of the options they put forward, but they didn't. Let's see what NIU actually has to say about it.
But yeah, if there's a way to really piss off your coach, don't make weight for a conference dual meet. But NIU's mistake was UB's gain. Then after that, Brandon Lappy gave number 15 ranked Steve Blease basically all he had. There was some extracurriculars, some pushing and shoving, and both teams were assessed an unsportsmanlike and were docked a team point, which in the end had no real effect because it kept the same distance between the scores. It didn't change the math at all. Now, if it had just went one way or the other, it still wouldn't have affected the final outcome. But it would have made things a little bit more dicey. Then UB lost at one. Colt Cotton lost. I think that was more of a product of the guy he was facing. Colt was a very short, stocky, really big built guy. The guy who he was wrestling had at least a good, I think, 4 or 5 inches.
Absolutely.
And the reach advantage.
I don't think Colt put a hand on his legs in the entire match. At least from a shot, he might have from a scramble gotten a takedown. But
yeah, it's just so tough when with that reach advantage that his guy had, he just wasn't able to overcome it. And Alex Smythe lost, Brock Nadoke lost, and Tyler Rill lost. So it came down to a winner-take-all match at 184. And Joe Areola really, he was the hero of the day. Well, he and James Benjamin, I say, are the heroes of the day today. Benjamin for getting that huge momentum boost at the start of the match, pinning a nationally ranked guy, and then
that makes me want to listen to Metallica now. Sorry, you just said hero of the day, and now I'm gonna. Sorry, I'm gonna listen to Metallica once we finish the show. Just an FYI.
And then Ariel bookending it, getting a 6-1 decision. Really, he had a 3-0 lead heading into the final. Into the final period, he got another takedown, and he wrestled a great match. I mean, there's really not much more I can say. It was his first conference win of the year. It's no better time than the present to really get it. But that sealed UB's 10th win of the year, and things are starting to look good.
Yeah. Tough one next week against Northern Iowa for sure. Really, what I'm most interested in that one is Jake Gunning at heavyweight and see how he matches up in what we're feeling pretty good about. Could be a MAC final showdown against. I don't even know the fellow's name because I'm not like you. But
his name
that's what I'm most interested in.
If there was a first name for a guy from the northern part of Iowa, his name is Blaze.
I was going to guess Blake. Oh,
Blaze.
One consonant off. Blaze.
And this guy, he's a top 20 ranked wrestler. And Gunning's beat just about everyone in the conference. I don't really see why he wouldn't make the finals unless he ended up on this guy, the Northern Iowa guy's side of the bracket. But I don't think that will happen based on the regular season results. I mean, as of the most recent MAC coaches ranking, Gunning was second. And actually the guy he beat today from Northern Illinois beat the guy from Eastern Michigan that was tied for second with Gunning. So I think Gunning will move into sole possession of second place, and he'll probably get the second seed at the MAC tournament. So yeah, a lot of good things. On Gunning, let me look at the old stats here. I believe Akins, Lantry, and Gunning have the team lead with 17 wins apiece. Let me just confirm this. Let's see. Akins is 17-9. Gunning is 16-9. So there's a 1-win differential there. But Gunning moved to 5-2 in the MAC.
Which is good.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah. And you mentioned to me, John, that Gunning is shooting up the all-time rankings at UB in total takedowns.
For
and I mean, if we filter down for just single leg takedowns, he's probably already the leader.
And yeah, I'm just going based off the takedowns that are listed in the match notes and the statistics there. So these are unofficial. I'm not sure if these are correct or not. But as of right now, the number of takedowns he has would put him top 20 in takedowns in a season. And if he keeps at this current pace that he's at, he'll end up top 3 all time in takedowns in a career. So that's very good to see. Let's look at one last thing. And Brian Lantry now has 17 wins as well. So Kyle Akins and Brian Lantry are tied for the lead.
Yeah.
With 17 wins, Gunning just behind with 16. But Gunning has the best MAC dual meet record out of anyone.
That is, we should point out in varsity non-redshirt burning level competition, because at that lower, lighter end of the spectrum, there's also Justin Patrick just ripping through.
Yeah, he's
going to be an interesting lineup decision at 125 next year, or 133 if one of them, beefs up a little bit. It's going to be a real interesting breakdown.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there, but guess we just cross that bridge when they come to it. Even next year too with Nate Rose,
Yeah,
pretty heralded coming out of high school, wrestled at the World Championships, but I mean, James Benjamin just pinned a nationally ranked guy. I mean, you can't,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. I mean, at all spots next year. I mean, there's Tommy Forte coming in. Estevez will be coming back from injury. I like what we've gotten out of Adrian Ferrari this year. You know, he's 5-5 according to the statistics, but what I've been able to see has been a pretty consistent record. Ryan Cromer's got 17 wins in the open world. You know, it's there's a lot there. There's going to be a lot of tough decisions, and I guess that comes with the territory.
And Brett Perry too, he's 11-3, and he's won two tournament championships
Sure.
too. So even Ian James, I mean, no, he's not going to supplant Jake Gunning, but Ian James is 11-4. So I mean, God forbid if something were to happen to Gunning, we do have, you know, someone capable of stepping into the lineup if need be.
I don't know. I haven't done too much research on the incoming freshmen, but Logan Rill is a 197. Matt Seitz is in the 150s, I think.
I think he's 157.
I should know the other names too. Now we're really getting ahead of ourselves. We kind of ripped through all the other sports pretty quickly and still managed to burn a full half an hour on wrestling, which is fine. We talked in some other sports competing for time, so that's what had me going. We're at the point where we're talking about next year's wrestling lineup, still with a weekend and a conference championships to go. Which, by the way, wrestling gets to compete in the postseason this year. Everything's coming up Millhouse. It's just the good news doesn't stop. But we'll cross that bridge. Gone for our 20 minutes tape delayed hour because Matt. That's me. I'm Matt. Couldn't figure out his speakers, so go. I still can't believe that happened. It's a Sunday night. We're always talking UB Olympic sports on Sundays. I'm joined by John McWhinney, as always, Matt Gritzmacher. Next week we'll have some new tennis matchups to talk. We'll be talking wrestling in their regular season finale. We'll have more track and field to talk about, presumably another school record. I can't see why not. Swimming and diving still won't have gone their break until this, but baseball will have a show with baseball next Sunday. You know, just under a week from now. Have a good week. Enjoy your holiday tomorrow. Tell someone who your favorite president is and tell them why it's Teddy Roosevelt. Enjoy your day off. Drink some beer. Barbecue. Have a good one.